G'day, friends and fans. Welcome to Writing Quarter 41. World Building Part 9, Different Faction Types. Now, as I spoke before about factions, you can apply world building to factions and, in fact, to help flesh out your world, adding factions, that is, different organizations, and giving them size, structure, and organization will go a long way to adding depth to excuse me, allergies, adding depth to your world. Now, we've discussed a little bit about factions. Basically, what is a faction? It's a group of people with a purpose. And it can be a social structure of many individuals with a common goal, much like a business organization. However, the faction is organized, factions are an element of conflict. They exist in all worlds and they are always struggling for resources. They struggle to compel the population to support them, or they are in a fight for survival against the ruling powers. However, they stand united or they fall, depends on you, of course, but they represent segments of the population and rarely are united despite their conflicts. One prime example, of course, of factions is what would you call it? I suppose you would call them the noble houses of Westeros. No, you shouldn't really call them nobility, but they were presented as nobility, but they weren't really nobility. They weren't even knightly factions. They were more like militias with self-appointed nobles. But nonetheless, they didn't really have an ability that came from the king. They just came from the fact that their family was the one who held power over that castle. But I suppose that's all nobility. But I'm saying that actual nobility has more depth to it than I just occupied this castle. But of course, over time, you can actually have such things occur. So it's not entirely unfair, but if it's a ancient nobility, they should have more than just I sat on this hill and built a castle behind them. Now, today we're looking at different types of factions. First, of course, is the military. These are armies, Air Force, Navy, mercenaries, knightly orders, companies. They have a management structure, discipline, and are interested in either defense or offensive actions in the interest of their sponsor, whether the sponsor be a noble, a state, whatever. Religious organizations, secular cults, even. But most religions would fall under the term of religious faith, spiritual sect, or a cult. But some would be considered a holy order, like monks. Now, of course, with religious orders, their primary concern would be spreading the faith, preserving traditions, protecting believers, converting unbelievers, and guarding against other faiths interloping, and of course, the faithless, the attacks from the faithless. The political factions, these could be kings, emperors, political parties, loyalists, radicals, aristocracies. You have the loyal and the corrupt, the peaceful and the warmongering within these organizations. They have one goal: power, to rule a nation, to gather as much power over that nation, to control the resources of that nation or state or people. Where religion is the hearts and minds, the political is the administrative. Political organizations often conflict with religious organizations as well as each other. You have economic groups. These are companies, trading companies, merchants, guilds, multinational corporations, factories, labor groups, which basically not all of them are unions, some are called guilds. Some may be good, some may be bad, some may actually be quasi-political, quasi-religious, or quasi-military. Now, guilds stand different from each other. Now, you have workers' groups, although they can sometimes be called guilds. Guilds stand alone in the fact that guilds are an organization based on a single trade or single profession, like the Artisans Guild, stonemasons, the International Organization of Accountants, truck drivers. They actually have a guild, though not much for one these days, but they used to be very big once upon a time. So was the carpenters and the shoemakers. In fact, shoemakers were once one of the biggest guilds in the world. Guilds could be gunsmiths, armorers, tanners, crafters, carpenters. You have bards, law keepers, artists, curators. You have also, once upon a time, there was a thing called Keeper of the Secrets. These were monasteries, though inside the monastery was actually a guild where, people have a need to talk or somebody to talk to. Well, the king's spy masters would have their confessors within religions, and they'd confess their sins to these confessors. And the confessors would hear them and talk to them and keep their secret, because monasteries made up of people who taken an oath not to talk. They could talk in the confines of the confessional booth. They could talk. They could say a prayer over a meal, and confessors could confess to each other within their confessionals. So it was a very closed system, the keeper of secrets. Actually, how secret societies built up, actually, were within religions and guilds. Cultural groups. These are based on ethnicity, class, religions, traditions, regions. Birds of a feather flock together, so to speak. Now you have cults of personalities, sometimes called a house, where you have a charismatic leader, wealthy elite, prophets, living saints. These are individuals with power from the people who have now power over the people. They have legions of fans, followers, etc., who serve under the banner solely to protect, to listen to, whatever, these great houses, these great prophets, these figureheads, these leaders, these charismatic figures. Technically, the rulers take the Boyhood of Cain, the rulers of the empire, the great 13 houses, they're all rock stars, in some form or another. They're all charismatic leaders of great houses, of great wealth, fame, and prestige. They're immortals, and they have cult followings, and they pretty much rule through their cults, their peoples, their power, prestige. Now, of course, you have criminal organizations, pirates, gangs, assassins guilds, thieves guilds, Often assassins are within thieves' guilds, organised crime, secret societies. Criminals, of course, work for all factions some way or another. They weave their way through. They rely on, they prey upon, and they in turn need customers from the people. So they need to work within other organizations. I mean, they wouldn't last long without protection. Now, some assembly is required with guilds, and you need to put together factions. In the Lord of the Rings, you had the Ring Bearer, which founded the Fellowship, and that Fellowship of Riverdale, founded amongst the elves, of course, while Sauron's army was a faction defined by the White Hand, and Gondor's armies, and of course you had the Rohan Riders. In Song of Ice and Fire, you had the various houses. You also had bands, tribes, etc. Star Wars, you have the two main. Started with the Jedi and the Sith, then you had the Trade Federation and the Republic, the Rebels and the Empire, the First Order and the Resistance, not to mention the Mandalorian, Tusken Raiders, the Hutts, and an ever-growing army of various organizations. I think there are over 24 now listed as Star Wars. In Dungeons and Dragons, you had, depending on which setting, but most probably these days it's just the Forgotten Realms that people have heard of. You have the great city-states, the kingdoms, various territories. You have various factions, the elves, the various lords, various enclaves, the various religious groups like the Zentarium, and many others. In Avatar, The Last Airbender, you had the various kingdoms, various nations, you had the various tribes, and then you had the nomads. In Harry Potter, of course, you had houses, which were actually just, just basically cults, but they weren't really. In Marvel, you had the Avengers, Shield, Hydra, the Children of Thanos, the Guardians of the Galaxy, the Marauders, the Society of the Ten Rings. You had a lot of factions. Yeah, a lot. Marvel had a lot to work with. Over the years, I think they've abandoned more than they have actually preserved. They're losing rights. They're losing friends. They're losing creators. They're losing. Why? Because some blue hair wants to get revenge on daddy for not buying her a pony. The society's sick. Instead of getting over your grievances, people just want to relive them, rehash them, take them out. Oh, I didn't like Marvel growing up, so I'm going to become a Marvel writer and destroy it. Ha ha! I didn't like this. I got your back, Johnny. This is for you, Johnny. I'm tearing up your Captain America because you wouldn't go out with me. There's so many fucked people out there that they need to suffer. They need, Marvel, too big to fail. Actually, an upcoming one is the Fallout series, in which you're going to learn about NCR, the Enclave, the Brotherhood of Steel, the Minutemen, the Settlers. And those are just the major. You've got the Vault organization, Las Vegas, I forget the name of the Children of the Atom. Although I think Children of the Atom was actually I think that's a contentious one because it does sort of fit with Wasteland. That's another one. All right, so coming up, we're going to talk about building factions. Well, you're going to start with names, goals, structures, rivals, conflicts, history and law, reputation, many other factions. Stuff to go through with building factions. Now, there are some large and small things that you have to deal with. You have to realize that factions are your conflict. They're bigger than your heroes and villains. They are in their own right characters in your story. Treat them with respect, kindness, and build them well, and they will serve you well. The more you give into detail now, the less you have to make up later on the fly as you're actually writing your story. And the more material you have for more stories. Thank you for listening. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. YouTube users, please hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. One way to support the channel is to buy coffee mugs and other items. There's a discount link in the description below for my Etsy store. Please become a Patreon today. You help support my writing. All money goes to buying artwork and covers for the stories. And of course, check out the links in the description below for more information on where you can find my books, etc. And once again, once again, thank you for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and all that fun stuff. Support the channel, links in the description below, and hope to see you next video.